visitors are no longer allowed to apply for work permits from within Canada. The rural and northern immigration pilot ended yesterday, August 31st. Foreign nationals can no longer apply for a postgraduate work permit at the border. The enhanced caregiver pilot program. This particular pilot program will allow caregivers to come into Canada, and that way the caregivers become a permanent resident in Canada. Some international students might not agree with me, but I can bet it's a good news. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Yemisi. If you see my face for the very first time, hey hi. On this channel I make videos about moving to Canada as an international student, as a permanent resident, and how to settle into Canada as an immigrant. So whether or not you came in as a student, a permanent resident, a temporary resident like your foreign work permit and the likes, I make videos that helps you to settle in seamlessly. I also share vlogs from time to time documenting my life here in Canada. So if these are the kind of videos that you love to watch, consider subscribing and join the family. Today's video is a very serious one. I say very serious because I know that I've been stalling for the longest time. I haven't been documenting a lot of videos about immigration. Today I'm going to be talking about all the newly introduced immigration policies that IRCC has implemented and that have started already or that will be taking effect soon. So I'm going to take you guys back a little bit. A quick warning, I want you to be very attentive. Get a pen, get a paper, because I'm not only going to be telling you all these policies, I'm also going to be breaking them down and explaining some of their implications to you so that you are better prepared when you are coming in, or if you're already here in Canada, you're better prepared for your next line of action. So yeah, without further ado, let us go into the video. The first thing that I wanted to share with you, and I think that a lot of you already know this, but just so that I can reiterate it, the cost of living per year has increased from $10,000 to $20,635 effective this year. I'm pretty sure some of you are aware of these changes, especially if you've been applying for the start in September, which today is September 1st, by the way. If you have checked the cic.ca website, which is where the news releases are usually documented, then you'll be aware of this. Or maybe your agent has told you, or maybe you read it up somewhere. So I'm going to break that down like I promised. Prior to now, or prior to this policy, whenever you're trying to apply for your Canadian visa as a student, you're supposed to show at least $10,000 in your bank statement for a year and $12,000 for every dependent that you are going to be bringing along. That was then. Right now, the amount that you have to show in your bank statement for a year is now $20,635 for a year, meaning if you have a 2 years program, then you should be showing $40,000 plus, aside your tuition fees, aside some of the miscellaneous expenses, because of course you don't want to have the exact figure in your account. That will prove to the visa officer that you are coming to study. Okay, that's one of the, in fact, I used to tell people that one of the major visa application success is proof of finance. And I have a video that I did when I first came into Canada in 2021, but that video is very helpful, and there's a lot of positive comments how it has helped people. So I will advise that you go check that video. I shared 10 ways to prove finances for your Canadian visa application. That's the first policy that I wanted to get out of the way. The second policy that came out recently, and I think that was effective May 15th, international students who begin a college program delivered through a public-private curriculum licensing arrangement on or before May 15, 2024 will not be eligible for a postgraduate work permit. Exceptions are for those who started the program prior to May 15th, 2024. I'm going to explain that quickly. If you're coming to study in Canada, even if you don't intend to stay, you never know. You might get a good job, you meet people, and you decide to stay here. So when you're coming in, try to target schools that are DLI, designated learning institutions, because most DLIs are eligible for postgraduate work permits. I made a video where I shared the link to all the universities in Canada, their DLI number, so that you can see the schools that do not have DLIs and you know what to do. Also, I must point out, as I always do, that not all designated learning institutions can offer postgraduate work permits to you after study, so you need to be very careful. Coming down to this particular policy, if you are enrolled in a college program that delivers a public-private curriculum, I don't know anyone off the top of my head right now, but if I do, I'm going to leave it on the screen. Effective May 15, 2024, you will no longer be eligible for postgraduate work permit. That took effect already for those people that had not gotten admission or that had not started the program prior to that date. Anybody that's applying to those kind of schools right now, then you know already that you are not eligible for a postgraduate work permit. And it's so unfortunate because now is international students getting all the hits. So that is something that I really want you to note, because again, postgraduate work permit is a big deal. Well, at least for me. Imagine that I studied in a school where I cannot get postgraduate work permit, or that I took a program that would not make me eligible to get postgraduate work permit. I would have been back in my home country. And for those people that might be in that kind of category and didn't intend to stay back at all and eventually found a good job, it's going to be very painful. So I always like to tell people to err on the side of caution. The third policy that I'm sure that you guys are aware of is, since April 1st 2024, IRCC started the LOA verification process. LOA is the letter of acceptance. So let me tell you why this came about. Visa officers started to complain about the increase in the number of fraudulent admission papers that were being submitted to them, and in order to curb that inadequacy, IRCC decided to introduce this letter of acceptance verification process, whereby you have to get that letter from your school or your designated learning institution, which will form part of your requirement to apply for a study visa. Of course, I know that's strenuous, right? Aside getting admission, which can be a hassle for a lot of people, I have multiple DMs where people are asking me how long it took me to get my admission, even though I've shared the story, and I keep telling people that our processes will definitely be different. Also, I applied during the COVID period when a lot of people weren't really applying for admission. I personally think all of those factors play a role in getting my admission pretty quickly compared to others. Right now, there is a surge. A lot of schools are not issuing admission letters as fast as possible. So introducing this letter of acceptance verification process will definitely slow down a lot of things for you in terms of trying to get your visa application rolling already. But there's been a lot of admission letters that turned out to be fake. Why are people even doing that? That's the issue. When you want to outrun the system, it affects the people that are genuinely applying for a good course or whatever. It's really annoying, but the deed is done because the implementation already took effect since April 1st of this year. Those are the first three that I thought to quickly share with you guys. Now we'll get into the most recent Canadian immigration policies that were introduced. I'm going to explain the implication to you as a prospective immigrant. As of August 31st, 2024, visitors are no longer allowed to apply for work permits from within Canada. Let me explain. Once you're coming to Canada, you already know the visitor route, right? Before the end of this particular policy, visitors could come into the country and find a good job and decide to apply for a temporary visa. Or visitors could come into the country and decide to convert their visitor visa to a study permit, meaning they can come in as a visitor and then get a job to work, or they can come in as a visitor and then get an admission in order to study. There's been a lot of success stories in this regard, but effective immediately, let me use the IRCC news release term. Effective immediately, which was August 28th, visitors were no longer allowed to apply for work permits within Canada. Henceforth, once you come into the country as a visitor, you cannot apply for temporary work visa any longer. You cannot convert your visitor visa to a work permit. But one of the reasons is IRCC has said that bad actors were using this policy to mislead foreign nationals into working in Canada without authorization. So that's the reason why they put this new policy in place. It's really sad, but it is what it is. The next immigration policy that was put forward in January, I believe, is that Canada has decided to place a cap on the number of study permits that will be accepted for 2024. I think before it was around 500 or 450,000 people. Right now, the cap is at 360,000 people, and that cap would be there until 2026, according to the IRCC news. And they have said that this is a decrease of 35% from 2023. It's going to be a decrease from last year, a 35% decrease. That's a whole lot, which means that some people might just be refused, probably just because they've gotten to the cap, like the number of people that they want to issue study permits to. I mean, international student right now, and it's really sad. So yeah, I really hope that all of these policies are changed, because I mean, Canada can always switch up their policies from time to time. So I really hope that this doesn't stay for too long. But currently, that is the policy. Another policy that I just remembered now that is a good one that came out earlier this year is that graduates of master's program will now be eligible for 3 years postgraduate work permit, regardless of the number of years that they study for. Prior to that policy, for someone like me, I had to study for 2 years to get a 3 years postgraduate work permit. If you study 1 year course, you get 1 year postgraduate work permit. And honestly, you might not really understand how important this policy is until you hear from someone that came study for a year and got just 1 year postgraduate work permit, which kind of affected them because the CRS score at the time, because of COVID, went really high. If you don't work for a year, you can't get extra 40 points, which will now somehow help you to increase your points. So imagine that kind of mental stress that a lot of people had to go through at the time. So this is really, really a good news. I really hope that this particular policy stays for a very long time because it gives people some sort of peace, makes people to not just go study 2 years program for the sake of just studying 2 years program. Okay, this other one is a good news. Some international students might not agree with me, but I can bet that it's a good news. I'm saying it's a good news because I know what it means to study for 20 hours. I was there. Let me just put it in the IRCC term. Allowing students to work for more than 20 hours, which happened for almost a year. That was even supposed to end as of December 2023, but it was extended to April 2024. So I didn't really enjoy that 40 hours, but I worked as an intern and got my work permit so I could work for 40 hours for 8 months. So I understand what it means to work for 40 hours and what it means to work for 20 hours. And I know for sure that when you can work for 40 hours or more, because let's all won't be very, very clear here. RCC never put a cap. They only said you can work for more than 20 hours. So a lot of people enjoyed that luxury. Unfortunately, it has come to an end. But IRCC is saying in fall 2024, which is September, they may, let me use their word, they intend, to change the number of hours students will work off campus per week from 20 hours to 24 hours. 4 hours is something, you guys. I know that you are probably mad as an international student that you cannot work for up to 40 hours or, not having that cap on the number of hours that you can work. Trust me when I say that extra 4 hours is something. If financing yourself in the country. So extra 4 hours for every week is like 16 hours in a month. Understand that it might not be looking significant, but I feel like it's still something. That is the update for international students, unfortunately. The reason why the current Minister of Immigration, Honorable Mark Miller, has put this policy in place is because they want to ensure that students focus primarily on their studies while having the option to work rather than focusing on work, which is not the reason they came here in the first place. The rural and northern immigration pilot ended yesterday, August 31st. So they are not extending that pilot program. So the pilot program was intended initially to help immigrants move into the rural communities in the provinces because it's just normal that when people want to come to the country, they want to go to work, they have a family member or the places that they hear the most. Someone like me, I never heard of Saskatchewan when I was coming, and I had to do a lot of research until I stumbled on Marina's channel. I realized that I had someone in Saskatchewan to be precise, and then I did my research. But there are rural communities in these provinces that a lot of people don't even hear about. See, I won't lie to you, even after living here for over 3 years, I hear the name of communities in some provinces and I'm like, I've never heard of those places before. So the goal for IRCC was to have people immigrate and settle into these communities and grow the communities. That particular pilot program has ended already, but there's a new one that is called Rural Community Immigration Pilot Program. That one is set as an economic immigration program that will benefit some of Canada's more remote regions. This particular program will help employers to offer more support. This new pilot program is set to launch in fall. So IRCC has not yet announced which communities will be eligible to participate or eligibility criteria for newcomers. So I'd advise that you stay tuned, and once I hear anything, I'll let you know for sure. Okay, so I have 2 more policies that I want to talk about. The new program that IRCC introduced to support caregivers and Canadian families to make caregivers program permanent. There were 2 pilot programs that were introduced initially. That is the Home Child Care Provider Pilot Program and the Home Support Worker Pilot Program, but they closed in June. Now we have a new one that was introduced, or that is now introduced, which is the Enhanced Caregiver Pilot Program. This particular pilot program will allow caregivers to come into Canada, and that way the caregivers become a permanent resident in Canada. Although we know that it's called Enhanced Caregiver Pilot Programs, I think it's going to be a couple, not just one, to provide home care workers with permanent residence on arrival in Canada. They will also be allowed to work for organizations that provide temporary or part-time care for people who are semi-independent or recovering from an injury or illness. This new pathway means that caregivers can more easily find proper work with reliable employers and have a clear, straightforward access to permanent residence status as soon as they arrive in Canada. The eligibility for this one would be you must attain a minimum of level 4 as your IELTS level 4 based on the Canadian language benchmark. That's English test. You must hold the equivalent of a Canadian high school diploma. By the time you evaluate that certificate that you have, it must be at least the equivalent of a high school diploma here in Canada. You must also have recent and relevant work experience, and you must receive an offer for a full-time home care job. So this has not been launched yet. This was in June 2024. We are currently in September. The major plan towards this particular pilot program is so that these caregivers can get PR on arrival, and it can mark an important step forward in Canada's effort to meet the evolving home care needs of its diverse population. According to the IRCC website, more information will be available before the full launch of these pilot programs, including full eligibility criteria and details on how to apply. Those information that I mentioned above were some of the minimum criteria, so they could add more requirements. How to apply, you will know once it is finally out. Again, once I get any updates on this information, I will let you guys know. I'm so happy for this particular pilot program because I find a lot of people reaching out to me to say, hey, I am a nurse, or I'm interested in a caregiver route. This is something that you should look forward to. The last policy that I wanted to mention, and unfortunately I'm ending this video on a sad policy note. In June 2024, about 2 or 3 months ago now, Honorable Mark Miller, that's the immigration minister, announced that foreign nationals can no longer apply for a postgraduate work permit at the border, effective immediately. So let me explain what that means. Initially, and I think I'm one of those people that usually mention that you can actually go flagpole if you want to fast track your visa application process. It wasn't an illegal process. So typically when people apply for visa application, once it's taking forever to be approved and you've tried to reach IRCC on phone and they're unable to respond, people typically flagpole, meaning they go to the border to submit all their visa application. I think what they do is to cancel the previous one you have, look at all the information you have if it's accurate, and then they give you your approval on the spot if you meet the requirement. Like, they still go through all the normal process. It's just that you get your approval on the spot and then you come back home. You have to go through the Canada-US border. So you're going into the US territory and then you're coming back into Canada. I think that way you get like stamp on your passport. I've never used that route. I almost did when I was trying to apply for my work permit, when I was trying to work as an intern back then. We needed a closed work permit at the time, but I eventually didn't because we were given some sort of leeway to keep working for 20 hours until our work permit was approved. People had been using that route for a very long time, but right now foreign nationals, which is mostly students, are no longer able to flagpole to get a postgraduate work permit. Once you've finished school, you've gotten your letter of completion and you intend to apply for a postgraduate work permit, you apply through the normal process, the GCK platform, and you wait until you get a visa decision. That's your postgraduate work permit. And I honestly don't even know the reason why people would want to go flagpole to get a postgraduate work permit, because if I remember correctly, once you apply, within 24 hours you get an email, more like a letter, sent to you to allow you to keep working until 6 months before your postgraduate work permit arrives. Like, you can keep working for 6 months if your postgraduate work permit has not been approved. Is an approved letter from IRCC. Anyway, right now it's no longer a process for you. You cannot go to the border to get a postgraduate work permit approval any longer. One of the statistics that was shared was that from March 1st, 2023 to February 29, 2024, postgraduate work permit applicants represented about 1/5 of the foreign nationals who attempted to flagpole. So a lot of people would typically flagpole to travel, do business, but 1/5 of the foreign nationals that attempted to flagpole were doing that for the purpose of a postgraduate work permit, and IRCC thought it was risky, and also to increase fairness amongst applicants, because let's not even lie, if you go there you get approved on the spot. Meanwhile, some people have applied for like 2-3 months prior, they haven't gotten their own decision. So those are the policies that IRCC rolled out in the past couple months. If you think that I missed out on any policy, please let me know in the comment section. Also, if you have any question about any of these policies, let me know in the comment section and I'll be sure to respond to all of your questions. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel, because I will definitely be sharing immigration policies in the future as an international student or a permanent resident or a temporary work permit or temporary resident, all in general, and so that you don't miss out on my vlogs, because I promise they are quite interesting, if I say so myself. Alright guys, that is all for today. Don't forget to hit the notification bell, turn it to all notifications so that you do not miss out on any of my videos. Some people complain about not seeing my videos is because your notification bell isn't turned on. So please do that. Like this video, share with your friends and family members, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.